Everyone thinks they know Hannah Barron, the girl who wrestles catfish out of muddy riverbanks with her bare hands. The 5-foot-tall powerhouse who somehow makes the most dangerous fishing method in America look like a walk in the park. But the version of Hannah Barron that lives on your phone screen is only a fraction of the real story, and turning 30 seems to have pushed her to finally talk about the parts fans never got a straight answer on. Because behind the viral clips and the record-breaking catches, there's a decade of quiet chapters nobody covered in real time. A relationship that vanished overnight with zero explanation. A father who nearly died in the woods and somehow drove himself home afterward. 2 separate internet pylons that were supposed to end her career and instead did the opposite. This is the full picture, not the highlight reel. Hannah Barron was born on July 3, 1996, in Crenshaw County, Alabama, a part of the state better known for farmland than for producing internet celebrities. There were no cameras rolling, no algorithm to chase. Just a rural kid with a rural childhood, the kind that revolves around seasons and land instead of trends and likes. Her parents, Jeff and Lisa Barron, separated when Hannah was around 8 years old. That's an age where a family splitting apart can derail a kid's entire sense of normal. For Hannah, it did something different. It pushed her even closer to her father, and by extension, deeper into the outdoor world that would eventually define her entire adult life. Jeff Barron wasn't a casual weekend hunter. He built his whole year around it. Deer season, turkey season, wild hog season, and he brought his daughter along not as a spectator, but as an apprentice. He taught her to read tracks, to sit still for hours, to respect an animal enough not to take a bad shot just because the opportunity was there. That lesson landed early. At 8 years old, Hannah took down her first deer, a 7-point buck, only after her father made her pass on a dozen smaller, easier targets first. Patience wasn't optional. It was the whole point. While her classmates were figuring out which cartoons or pop songs were cool that week, Hannah was learning to identify local snakes by sight, a skill she reportedly had down by age 4, and spending long afternoons walking creek beds with her dad, absorbing an understanding of the outdoors that no classroom could replicate. Her mother, Lisa, stayed largely out of the public eye even after fame arrived years later, appearing only occasionally in family content, including a memorable clip filmed while grocery shopping ahead of a hurricane in October 2018. Long before Catfish Queen became her nickname, Hannah picked up a technique most people have never heard of, let alone tried: noodling. It's exactly as intense as it sounds, reaching barehanded into underwater holes and letting a catfish clamp down on your arm before wrestling it to the surface. No rods, no nets, no safety margin. Just raw nerve and grip strength. A family friend named Brad Gavins taught her the method, something of a thank you for help her father had given him years earlier. Hannah picked it up almost unnervingly fast, like it had always been part of her skill set waiting to be unlocked. Then, on an ordinary afternoon, a cousin happened to be filming when she pulled a 30-pound flathead catfish out of murky water using nothing but her hands. That clip didn't just do well. It exploded. People who had never thought about fishing in their lives couldn't stop watching a young woman calmly wrestle a fish nearly a third of her own body weight out of the mud, completely unbothered. There was no performance to it, no forced excitement, no staged reaction. That authenticity is exactly what made it spread. A nickname formed almost instantly, and the Catfish Girl became permanent internet shorthand for Hannah Barron. In 2018, while her online following kept climbing, Hannah also graduated from Troy University with a Bachelor of Science degree, proof that the viral fame wasn't replacing a real life, it was running alongside one. Standing at roughly 5 feet tall, she never fit the image people expected from a viral outdoor personality, and that contrast between her small frame and clearly enormous physical strength became a core part of her appeal. It even reportedly caught the attention of a college football coach who tried recruiting her for entirely unrelated reasons, a strange but telling sign of how far outside the hunting world her fame had already traveled. Not everyone inside the hunting community welcomed her right away. Some longtime hunters wrote the whole thing off as a gimmick, assuming the attention would fade within a season. It didn't. Every new video only grew the audience further. Fame off camera came with complications that never made it into the content. Around 2016, Hannah began a relationship with fellow hunter Ryan Horton, and for a few years he was a constant presence in her posts. They hunted together, traveled together, and looked, at least from the outside, like a couple built specifically for the lifestyle they both loved. In October 2018, a birthday post celebrated 3 years together, warm and clearly sincere, giving fans no reason to expect anything was wrong. Then in December of that same year, a photo showed the two of them with a pair of deer taken during a successful night hunt, both smiling. That photo turned out to be the last one the two of them ever appeared in together. By 2019, Hunter Horton had simply vanished from her feed. No breakup announcement, no explanation, nothing. His own accounts went quiet around June of that year. For a creator whose entire brand is built on sharing daily life, that kind of silence stood out sharply. Reports at the time suggested the couple had actually gotten engaged in late 2018, right around when those final photos were posted. Meaning, if true, the relationship didn't fade gradually. It collapsed right at the point it was supposed to move forward, with no public explanation ever offered by either side. Rather than address it directly or lean into a rebound storyline, Hannah's focus shifted toward family and business. Her father had always appeared in her content, but after 2019 that partnership deepened significantly. Hannah even took on editing duties for Jeff's own YouTube channel. No dramatic video ever closed the chapter on the relationship. Fans searching for closure never really got it, and eventually the questions just stopped being asked out loud, even if the curiosity lingered in comment sections for years. One name did briefly surface in the gap between relationships: Cohen Stone, a fellow hunter and producer who appeared in some posts and comments around 2020. Neither Hannah nor Cohen ever confirmed or denied anything romantic, and the rumor eventually faded on its own without becoming a real storyline. The bond between Hannah and her father almost ended in tragedy. On January 5, 2024, Jeff Barron climbed into a friend's hunting stand to check the equipment. The top strap gave way without warning, and he fell somewhere between 18 and 20 feet straight down, hard enough to knock him unconscious. He woke up alone in the woods, with no phone and no way to call for help. What he did next says a lot about him. He got up, walked roughly 400 yards through the trees, climbed a fence, and drove himself home. At the hospital, doctors found 3 fractured vertebrae in his neck and 2 more in his lower back, along with a bruised kidney. Hannah later spoke publicly about how frightening that moment was, revealing that doctors told the family a slightly different fall, or the wrong movement afterward, could have severed his spinal cord entirely. He survived. But an experience like that tends to reset what actually matters, and for Hannah and her father, it clearly reinforced how much of their identity, personal and professional, was built around each other. Somewhere between the heartbreak of 2019 and the accident in 2024, someone new started showing up in Hannah's world. Paul Washer, a professional firefighter and Air Force aviator from Alabama, began appearing in posts around 2022. Fans immediately had questions, but there was no big reveal video, no formal announcement. He simply kept showing up on hunting trips, in casual photos, folded naturally into a lifestyle that was already fully built. Then came a Valentine's Day post in February 2024. 2 people holding up a catfish together, captioned simply, "Happy Valentine's Day." For someone who generally avoids relationship announcements, that photo functioned like an official confirmation without ever needing to say so directly. What stood out most was how naturally Paul fit into her world. He didn't need to be introduced to hunting or fishing, he already knew both. His background in emergency response and military aviation gave the relationship a different public tone compared to what came before, and fans noticed that stability, more than shared hobbies alone, seemed to matter more this time around. By 30, without a single dramatic statement, Hannah answered every lingering question about her love life through consistency rather than announcements. While fans focused on her personal life, something bigger was quietly forming in the background. In September 2023, Jeff and Hannah co-founded a CBD company aimed specifically at outdoorsmen, hunters, and travelers, not a random trend chase, but a product built for the exact audience they'd spent nearly a decade cultivating. Around the same period, Jeff Barron was also building a home from the ground up by hand, a project personal enough that Hannah publicly thanked him for it, including, literally, the roof over her head, in a Father's Day post in 2024. Her brand partnerships expanded to include sports nutrition companies, alongside her own merchandise line, Barron Outdoors. And the numbers behind all of it are hard to ignore. Close to 1 million subscribers on YouTube, over 1.7 million followers on Instagram, and more than 2 million accounts following her on TikTok. Net worth estimates by 2025 landed somewhere between $5 and $6 million, with annual earnings from sponsorships and merchandise reportedly climbing past $500,000 in a single year. A kid from a small Alabama county built all of that from a fishing skill and a cousin's camera. Her influence extends beyond her own numbers, too. Industry research from the National Shooting Sports Foundation found a 25% rise in female hunters since 2016, a shift many in the industry connect directly to creators like Hannah putting authentic outdoor content in front of audiences who'd never considered the sport before. On March 9, 2024, a political commentator posted a clip of Hannah helping build her family's home, her Southern accent front and center. The caption mocking that accent claimed it should basically be illegal and threw in insults, suggesting outdoor women weren't feminine. The post blew up, racking up more than 60 million views within days. Most creators facing backlash that large take time to craft a careful response, maybe loop in a publicist, maybe stay quiet for a while. Hannah's response took about 90 seconds. She didn't even remember the commentator's name, and instead of getting defensive, she flipped the entire narrative into a simple statement about growing up as the outdoor kid who never fit anyone's expected mold. No speech, no drama, just the truth, stated plainly. That calm reply pulled in around 75,000 likes in a single day. New followers poured in. Longtime fans felt completely validated. The very accent that was mocked as a weakness turned into exactly what people wanted to celebrate. What was meant to embarrass her turned into one of the most effective promotional moments of her career, and media outlets picked up the story, turning one insulting post into a broader conversation about online cruelty and regional pride. Most coverage of Hannah Barron stops right around that 2024 moment. What almost nobody talks about is what happened over a year later, when a second, harder controversy hit. On July 18, 2025, Hannah posted 3 photos from a successful bear hunt in Idaho, captioned simply with the animal and a bear emoji. The post pulled in over 21 million views and a wave of reactions almost immediately. 2 days later, backlash forced a public response. Her account reportedly got locked, partly over the new bear photo and partly over an older elk photo she'd been using as a profile banner. Both animals, according to her statements at the time, were eaten rather than wasted, a detail that rarely made it into outside coverage of the controversy. For an audience that had already lived through the accent controversy, the pattern felt familiar. Different platform, different critics, same shape. Outrage spread fast, support arrived faster, and the account came back stronger than before. Put side by side, the two controversies came from completely different angles. One about gender and femininity, the other about hunting ethics entirely, and yet both collapsed in exactly the same way. Neither one slowed her down. If anything, both proved that an audience built over nearly a decade doesn't get shaken loose by a single out-of-context clip, no matter how many views it racks up. By the middle of 2026, Hannah's merchandise lineup took a turn nobody following her hunting content saw coming. A swimwear collection, launched under the same brand as her camo and outdoor gear. Sizes reportedly began selling out shortly after launch, with fans posting photos of their purchases across social media. For a brand built entirely around mud, rivers, and camouflage, a bikini line looked like a contradiction on paper. Comment sections filled up fast with mixed reactions. Some longtime followers cheered it as a natural next step for a growing business. Others questioned whether it risked diluting the rugged identity that built her audience in the first place. In reality, the move followed the same pattern behind every other decision in her career. It wasn't chasing someone else's image. It reflected a life she'd already been living publicly for nearly a decade, one that was never only about hunting and fishing to begin with. Longtime followers pointed out the irony themselves. The same critics who once called her accent unfeminine and her hobbies too masculine were now watching her succeed in a completely different lane, without any of the contradiction they expected to see. Looking back across nearly 10 years in the public eye, one thread ties every chapter of Hannah Barron's story together. A vanished engagement that never got a public explanation. A father who nearly died in the woods and walked himself home instead. Two separate attempts to cancel her that turned into some of her biggest engagement numbers ever. A hunting and fishing brand that somehow launched swimwear and made it work anyway. None of it followed a predictable script, and that unpredictability is probably exactly why people keep watching. The real story here was never about scandal. It's about someone who built an entire career refusing to be defined by anyone else's expectations of who she was supposed to be.